What does it mean to call a country sinful? The word is heavy, loaded with judgment. When applied to a nation, it's often shorthand for high crime, corruption, or social breakdown, not just religious transgression. But this label oversimplifies, painting millions with a single brush and ignoring the real causes behind the statistics. Is a country sinful because of its inequalities, corruption, or denial of rights? These are systemic issues, not just individual actions. Such labels rarely help us understand reality. They reveal more about the person using them than the country itself. To truly understand a place like El Salvador, we must move beyond loaded terms and look at its history, culture, and people. Only then can we see the full picture, one of both shadows and resilience. Let's dig deeper. El Salvador, nestled in Central America, is known for its volcanoes, coffee plantations, and Pacific beaches. With over 6 million people, it's the most densely populated country in the Americas. Yet for decades, headlines have focused on violence and gangs, overshadowing its vibrant culture and resilient people. The world sees a nation gripped by fear, but this is only part of the story. Most Salvadorans are not involved in crime. They are artists, entrepreneurs, and families building a better future. The international image is a caricature, dark, incomplete, and unfair. There are two El Salvadors, the one in the news, and the one lived by its people. To understand the country, we must look beyond headlines and explore its difficult history and enduring humanity. The real El Salvador is complex, beautiful, and full of hope. Let's see what lies beneath the surface. El Salvador's struggles are rooted in a long history of inequality and violence, stretching back generations. The seeds of today's turmoil were planted long before the world took notice, in a society marked by deep divisions and persistent hardship. For much of the 20th century, a small, powerful elite controlled the nation's wealth and land, while the vast majority of Salvadorans toiled in poverty. This stark inequality bred resentment and unrest as ordinary people struggled to survive, while watching a privileged few thrive. Tensions simmered for decades, eventually boiling over into a brutal civil war that raged from 1980 to 1992. The war killed 75,000 people, left deep scars, and normalized violence as a way to resolve disputes. Families were torn apart, communities destroyed, and trust in institutions shattered. The trauma of conflict became woven into the fabric of daily life. Many Salvadorans fled the violence, seeking safety in the United States. In unfamiliar neighborhoods, young refugees banded together for protection and a sense of belonging, forming gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18. What began as a way to survive soon evolved into something far more dangerous. After the war, the U.S. deported thousands of gang members back to a fragile El Salvador, a country still reeling from conflict, flooded with weapons, and lacking opportunities for its youth. The returnees brought hardened street codes and a culture of violence. These gangs brought their rivalries and violence, finding recruits among youth who knew only poverty and conflict. With few alternatives, many young Salvadorans saw gangs as their only family, their only way to survive in a world that had offered them little hope. The result, gangs took root, and a new kind of war began, this time on city streets. Violence became a daily reality, shaping the lives of an entire generation and turning neighborhoods into battlegrounds. The legacy of war, displacement, and broken institutions set the stage for decades of violence. With government systems weakened and trust eroded, communities struggled to rebuild and protect themselves. Understanding this history is key to understanding today's challenges. The roots of violence run deep, and the past continues to shape the present in ways both visible and hidden. The violence didn't appear overnight. It was cultivated over generations, passed down like a shadow from parent to child, shaping the destiny of families and entire communities. El Salvador's story is one of trauma, survival, and the long shadow of its past. Yet, within this story, there is also resilience, a determination to endure and to heal. But it's also a story of people determined to break the cycle. Across the country, Salvadorans are working to build a different future, one where hope can finally take root and the wounds of the past can begin to heal. For years, El Salvador was infamous for having one of the world's highest homicide rates. At its peak in 2015, the country saw over 100 murders per 100,000 people. The numbers were staggering, painting a grim picture of daily life for millions. Violent gangs like MS-13 and Barrio 18 waged brutal turf wars, fighting for control of neighborhoods and entire cities. Their battles fueled a relentless wave of violence and widespread extortion, a practice known locally as la renta. Ordinary people, bus drivers, shop owners, and families were caught in the crossfire. Many were forced to pay protection money just to survive, knowing that refusal could mean deadly consequences for themselves or their loved ones. This climate of fear didn't just threaten lives, it crippled local businesses, forced shops to close, and trapped entire communities in a cycle of poverty and uncertainty. For young men, the choices were especially stark. Many faced impossible decisions: join a gang and risk their lives, refuse and become targets, or abandon their dreams for a safer but uncertain future. The result was devastating. El Salvador lost an entire generation to crime, incarceration, or the constant shadow of fear. Families mourned lost sons and daughters, and hope seemed out of reach. But since 2019, a sweeping government crackdown has changed the landscape. The murder rate has plummeted, with some days now reporting 0 homicides, a figure once unimaginable. Tens of thousands of suspected gang members have been arrested in massive operations. For many Salvadorans, this has brought a sense of relief and newfound safety, but it has also sparked heated debate. Human rights groups have raised serious concerns about the government's methods, warning of abuses, and the erosion of civil liberties. Still, the dramatic reduction in violence is impossible to ignore. El Salvador's crime story is changing rapidly. Streets that were once deserted after dark are now coming back to life, and people are beginning to hope again. The numbers tell a story of both pain and hope. A nation scarred by violence, but now daring to imagine a safer, brighter future. For years, Salvadorans navigated invisible borders, lines drawn not on any map, but in the minds of every resident. These boundaries, shaped by fear and violence, dictated daily routines and determined which parts of the city were safe to enter. Crossing into the wrong neighborhood could be fatal. The threat of gangs loomed over every street corner, and a simple mistake could have devastating consequences. Daily life meant constant vigilance, always watching, always listening, always alert to subtle signs of danger. People learned to memorize which streets to avoid, which alleys were off limits, and which neighborhoods were controlled by rival groups. Even clothing choices mattered. Certain colors could signal gang affiliation, putting innocent lives at risk. And yet, despite the ever-present fear, life went on. Markets buzzed with activity, children found moments of joy, and families gathered in public spaces. Resilience thrived amid uncertainty as Salvadorans found ways to celebrate life and community. The recent government crackdown has erased many of these invisible borders. For the first time in years, people feel safer. Children play outside without fear, and businesses operate without the constant threat of extortion. Streets once empty after dark now see families and friends gathering again. For many, this new peace is life-changing, a sense of freedom and possibility they've never known before. It's a freedom that brings hope and a chance to dream of a better future. But the crackdown comes at a cost. Suspended rights, arbitrary arrests, and a climate of fear for those caught in the crossfire. Families are left in anguish, waiting for news of loved ones detained without explanation, and communities worry about the loss of civil liberties. Some celebrate the end of gang rule, feeling a weight lifted from their shoulders. Others fear unchecked state power and the erosion of hard-won rights. The Salvadoran experience today is a complex mix of relief and anxiety, a daily negotiation between safety and freedom. Every family weighs the trade-off between newfound security and the cost to civil liberties, wondering what the future will bring. The country stands at a crossroads, its people facing difficult choices about the kind of society they want to build. Balancing newfound security with the need for justice, Salvadorans are adapting, finding new ways to support each other and rebuild trust. They hope this peace will last and that future generations will know a different El Salvador, one defined by hope, not fear. Their story is one of survival, of families holding on through hardship, and of a people determined to shape their own destiny. It is a story of hope, resilience, and the hard choices that define a nation's future. Religion is central in Salvadoran life. Churches are everywhere. Faith is woven into daily conversation. For many, faith offers comfort and community where the state has failed. Churches provide support, hope, and a sense of belonging, especially in times of violence. Religious leaders have spoken out for justice, like Archbishop Oscar Romero, martyred for his activism. Many churches run programs to steer youth away from gangs, offering alternatives through education and faith. Yet, religion can also distract from addressing root causes, focusing on personal salvation over systemic change. In El Salvador, faith is both a force for resilience and a mirror of the country's contradictions. Labeling El Salvador sinful is a damaging stereotype, reducing a complex nation to a single negative trait. It ignores beauty, culture, and the decency of most Salvadorans, fueling fear and misunderstanding. But if sin means societal brokenness, violence, fear, and corruption, then the label reflects a painful reality. The real sins are systemic violence, impunity, and the failure to protect the vulnerable. The label is harmful, but it forces us to confront the depth of the crisis Salvadorans have endured. It's not about the people's character, but the conditions they've survived. Understanding this helps us see both the harm of stereotypes and the urgency for change. Long before the crackdown, Salvadorans were fighting for change, often quietly, in their own communities. Local groups created safe spaces for youth, offering alternatives to gang life through art, sports, and education. Entrepreneurs and artists are reshaping the country's image, bringing hope and creativity to urban spaces. The Salvadoran diaspora sends billions home, supporting families and funding community projects. Today, the government's security strategy has dismantled much of the gang's control, creating a foundation for new growth. The challenge is to make this peace sustainable and just. The seeds of change need safety to grow, so education, opportunity, and civil society can finally flourish. El Salvador's future depends on nurturing these efforts beyond the end of violence. Outsiders see El Salvador through headlines, crime, gangs, and crackdowns. The local view is more nuanced. It's about daily survival, family, and the relief of newfound safety. For many Salvadorans, the end of gang rule feels miraculous, even as concerns about rights persist. This disconnect breeds resentment. Locals feel misunderstood by critics who never lived their fear. The world was silent during the worst violence, but now loudly critiques the solution. El Salvador is a country of dualities: violence and warmth, pain and resilience. The sinful label is crude, but it points to real struggles. The path forward is complex, balancing security with human rights. The outsider sees a troubled nation. The local sees hope for peace. The truth lies somewhere in between, where struggle meets resilience and hope begins.